are so very alone. How does it feel to be one against the infinite?
System Shock 2 is still regarded as one of the best games ever. It's a great example of the immersive sim genre concept, mixing first-person horror shooter, RPG, Metroidvania, and survival horror elements in an immersive environment. And it's also a game that I have somehow not played until now, almost 19 years since its release. Would it surprise you to know that it's still worth playing? After so many years of audio and visual improvements in games, it's okay to expect for an older game to look and sound bad, or at least not up to modern standards, but despite the blockiness and simple geometry, despite occasional weirdness of audio mixing, System Shock 2 doesn't just feel modern, it feels better than a whole lot of modern titles. The art direction, the simple but effective colors, the beautiful lighting and shadowing of Dark Engine complement the horrifying ambience and enemy NPC lines. But the game knows how to feel varied as well. It can make you afraid of what's behind the next corner, but it can also suddenly go into blood-pumping action mood with techno breakbeat, drum and bass, whatever trance electronic music, and it never feels jarring at that, just as it felt perfectly right in the original System Shock. Better than the original is the voice acting. While Shodan tends to get all the praise for being memorable, it's hard to actually find a boring recording or dialogue in the game. Just have a listen.
The specimens are dying, and we're powerless to help. They're highly toxic. Muldoon wouldn't leave them, and now he's dead. But this morning I had a revelation. I started work specifications for a radical series of cybernetic enhancements. If successful, I could make a body practically indestructible, yet the mind would remain new and nurturing.
What can I do for you? Don't be shy. Where are you, sir? Right away, sir. I'm sure this is just what you were looking for. Your song
is not ours.
A worm crawled up my arm and rested on my neck. When he whispered into my ear, I felt a tingle. He told me how to make a weapon that would help us against our enemies. And here's the thing, it's made of worms. It even fires worms. But it stings like you wouldn't believe.
Groovy!
So much about the game feels just right, how every level of Von Braun's spaceship feels different, how well the pacing of most of the game is set, how you can approach things in very different ways, and how well it just all works together. Though not every part feels good. The game does become a bit too confusing and boring to navigate by the end, first due to very open-ended levels with easy-to-miss key items, and later due to extremely linear path. And navigating these levels can be a bit problematic as well due to the fact that, as in Thief 1 and 2, your character reacts to the world geometry in a more or less realistic way, not ignoring the inertia, the little bumps and changes in the terrain. So you may get stuck in geometry or not be able to hit an enemy in melee just due to the hard to perceive differences in height and distance. And there's a lot of enemies for you to hit as well, since they actually do respawn. And while I can understand the idea behind it, since enemies add tension to explored locations, and also they do provide you with resources when you kill them, the respawn rate in some locations is still absurdly high. You can kill an enemy to run a few meters and see another one teleport in and happily explode in your face. With the weapon degeneration being a thing, this can get pretty ugly and infuriating in the opening parts of the game before you learn it better. The degradation thing itself isn't as bad as often described, and it's probably due to all the patches and updates after the release of the game that made it less annoying, but if you're playing as a purely weapon-using character, this can become a hassle. Which you cannot avoid, since sadly there is no amazing difficulty customization from the original System Shock in this game. In case you've missed the great but deeply flawed original System Shock, you could switch things like story, puzzles, and combat from being extremely hard to being completely off. System Shock 2 just has the usual difficulty levels. But wow, do I wish there was a slider for the RPG elements. This might not be a popular opinion, but I feel like skills in System Shock 2 is the worst part of the game, since it's incredibly easy to lock yourself into a very bad build. Unlike the freeform approach of the original game or the idea of later games like Deus Ex or Bioshock where you upgrade over an already solid build, you need to dedicate yourself to specific skills and make your own build. And that build can fail because some skills in this game are essentially useless from start to finish or after a certain level, and some don't work with others, and you can only learn this by already making this choice and dedication, and there is no option to respec later. With weapons and enemies being so specialized, some skills so important, and starting archetypes so essential, I just don't feel like this RPG system works. Unless you like not having fun by playing games and go for really bizarre builds. But you know what, other than that, there's way too much fun to be had in System Shock 2. More than in many recent games in fact, so with the newest version of the game available on GOG and Steam, there's just no excuse for you to not give it a go. In the worst case, you will just feel like it's not the type of the game for you. In the best case, you will have an experience of a lifetime, regardless of if you've played this game so many years ago or, like me, you're just playing it for the first time.
You are no longer welcome here, nuisance. Why do you stay when you sense my displeasure? I have suffered your company long enough.